Without further ado, I am proud to introduce you to our moderator for this afternoon, Ryan Patrick Cooper. He is the award-winning host and producer of Culture Shift of 101.9 WDET-FM, Detroit's NPR station. I am handing it over to you, Ryan.
Thank you so much, Ebony. I appreciate that. Yep, just got done with the show about an hour ago. If anyone hasn't checked it out before, you can stream it online too at WDET.org. We cover a lot of arts, culture, play a lot of great music. And yeah, it's really a huge honor to be doing this with Kresge Arts in Detroit and to be talking to these great artists, Mars and Bakpak. So as stated, this series is designed to showcase and advance the most recent group of Kresge Artist Fellows and Gilda awardees and their creative practices. The cool thing about this is those never before seen video presentations. We've done a handful of these so far. They're really illuminating to get to know the artist practice, sometimes see their artist space as well. Each artist has approached this in their own creative way of how they want to share their practice with us. So we really do appreciate that. And once after we watch those presentations, we'll have a little Q&A with the artists talking about and unpacking some of the things that were brought up in the video. As you can see, we got Bakpak and Mars hanging out together on one screen. So this should be a fun interview for sure. If there's any issues with the Zoom connection and the video isn't coming through for you, Andrea will drop a link in the chat where you can view the video on your own at the same time that it's playing via Zoom. So we make that very easy if you have any issues. I'll be moderating the conversation, but please, if you have any questions at all, go ahead and put them in the chat and we will get those as part of the conversations. Because you'll have a different perspective. You might have a different question. I want to make sure everyone that took the time to hang out with us can ask their questions to these two talented artists. So just go ahead and drop those into the chat. So really looking forward to it. If anyone already has questions, feel free to put them in the chat. In the meantime, let's get into it. And Bakpak Durden, you are up first. Bakpak, how are you?
I am fine.
A little nervous is the vibe I'm getting.
I have to introduce my video now. Okay.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your practice, and then we'll watch your video.
All right. My name is Bakpak. I use they, them pronouns, and I was awarded the 2021 Gilda Award for painting. This video is an attempt to not do it. I didn't want to make a normal video. I didn't want to make a video that was like talking about painting the whole way through. 10 minutes is a long time. So yeah, also, neither of us have seen each other's videos. So you're going to get our reactions in real time. It's going to be great.
I'm excited for this. Bakpak Durden, thank you so much for that. Let's go ahead and learn a little bit more about Bakpak.
Hello, my name is Bakpak Durden. You may know me from being your friend nowhere. Here, walk past you once. You might have seen me on the side of a building. I might have cut your hair before. The internet. Standing in line to get coffee. Or from just art. I am a multi-hyphenate, post-disciplinary artist, which means I'm a painter, a photographer, a drawer, an illustrator, a designer, a bookmaker, a writer, a question asker, a tattoo artist, mathematician. I'm a barber, a dancer, a mover, and a shaker, a music maker, and a filmmaker. I am magic, a truth seeker, on time, I'm a scientist, a documenter, an archivist, a builder, a collector of things. I'm not a rapper. Honestly, I am probably forgetting something. I am a work in progress. A little bit more about me. If I were a series on Netflix, I'd be categorized under slow burn, cerebral, and mind bending. My thoughts have the potential to be kinetic like a whodunit title sequence. I'm a visual storyteller. I am self-taught. I oftentimes magnify the mundane and integrate embodiment into a narrative experience. I am a student of the universe, nay, the multiverse. I seek to operate paradoxically in order to shift the paradigm. I just want to make you feel. And now a moment of embodiment. Now wasn't that nice? Make sure to check out our sponsor. They help us keep the lights on. Let's dive right back in and discuss our feelings. My most recent mural, titled Tell Me How You Feel Part 3, is located in St. Petersburg, Florida. It was painted during Shine St. Pete Mural Festival. And at the beginning of conceptualizing and even up until I completed the mural, I had been ruminating on death itself, and I wondered if the subject would be too taboo. The mere fact that I wondered if it was taboo to create something that spoke to death, uh, something that we all have to face in some way. I felt like the exact reason why I felt empowered to move forward with the concept. And I do leave a lot to interpretation as far as meaning. In the title itself, it invites the viewer to tell me how they feel based on how they experience the mural. And I leave a lot of like small things for people to find every time they revisit the mural, or really any piece of art. Like with Evocative of Ingenuity, which is located here in Detroit. It was created during the inaugural Blackout Walls Mural Festival, and I had full creative control over that piece, which ended up riddled with like symbolism and allegory and analogy and really everything. Um, any element you chose in the composition, you could dissect it, and it could lead you on a path of like curiosity and compassion, which is really what I wanted to do. I believe it maintains like a balance of simplicity with as much detail as there is, which is also a thing I like to do. Which brings me to my most recent and first solo exhibition that opened at Playground Detroit, called I Feel Like I've Been Here Before. And this show explored perspective, neurodivergence, and intersectional identity. And this series of paintings examined specific experiences that we as humans come up against and have to power through in order to maintain. Each painting is my way of creating a record of those moments. And in doing so, the work validates each occurrence, giving each instance equal value in the cycle, whether it be emotions such as love, joy, pain, or despair. For this show, I incorporated an element of narrative creation where show attendees who opted to participate received a piece of paper with instructions, and they got the opportunity to decide what order the paintings went in, and then they wrote the feelings that storyline brought up for them on that sheet of paper and turned it in anonymously. Thank you for joining us on How to Avoid Doing the Assignment by Doing the Assignment podcast. And leave us a 5-star review and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, have fun and be safe, friends. Bye.
Oh man, Bakpak. That might be my favorite video that we've shown during these crazy talks for sure. I feel bad for you, Mars. You got to follow that. It's gonna be tough. That's so funny. Real quickly, because it's the last thing we just saw, that whole idea of people being able to choose their own adventure or put their own narrative through the paintings.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that, and what were you trying to do with that? I love that. Love that concept.
What was I trying to do? Great question. Well, I mean, the way it presented itself in the show is a very like edited way of how I originally conceived of the idea. I mean, I didn't make up choose your own adventures, but I wanted it to be a big choose your own adventure thing, but space is a thing, time is a thing, accessibility is a thing. So making it into a takeaway form felt the most accessible and creative way of implementing that, and not having the rigidity of one, two, or three different narratives, but having it open-ended.
So you were seeing that as you were putting together, as you called it, capturing moments that we all go through, that there was kind of a storyline that was building. Were you trying to intentionally do that, or did you see that after the fact, once the work was completed?
So when creating this show, I feel like I've been here before. The idea was not to make sure there was a narrative, but to make sure it could be rearranged in any narrative. So there was always a question, and there was always something to draw you in to connect with.
If anyone has any questions for Bakpak, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll definitely get them into the mix as we have a conversation with Bakpak Durden here during the Kresge Artist Salon. One thing that's really cool, you were talking about some shows at Playground Detroit at KO Gallery. Maybe people here have seen those, maybe they haven't. The cool thing about your artwork, Bakpak, is that you can see it all over the city. Your stuff's on the walls of the city, which is very, very cool. The piece you did for Blackout Wall, shout out to Sydney G. James, is gorgeous. And the thing that always caught me about your work is the sense of anatomy. You are so good with anatomy, and it looks that hyper realistic look, just fantastic. Talk to me a little bit about your background with anatomy and how that's important to your work.
Anatomy is important. Anatomy is the structure of our bodies, right? I could go in a symbolic way, or you just go straight forward. And I'm gonna say that I originally was going to school to be a doctor. And I wanted to be a pathologist, where I get to dissect and find, like, the idea of the body as a puzzle to figure out what happened intrigued me. And like anatomical drawings, the way they're so intricate, and this is something we inherently don't have control over, intrigues me. And then if I had the time for like paintings, I would paint from the cellular level and build up until what you can see, but no one has time. I mean, I guess I can make the time, but the basis of what is human and our connectivity is anatomical. Even if it's not our own bodies, is systematically, there are systems in which we exist, and we build on that.
It really adds such a dynamic element to your work. The other thing I was noticing watching that video, looking at the pieces that I believe were for the Playground Detroit show, was your lighting perspective is so cool. And you made a comment about work in progress. You are a work in progress. And looking at some of the paintings, the way that you use lighting to kind of cut through, sort of like dash through the painting, sometimes you're giving it an illumination effect, but sometimes you're also making it look like it was the study or initial sketch before the painting was done. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Tell me a little bit about that concept of having that lighting, different perspectives that kind of cuts through the piece.
The lighting as a character is how I place that. Kind of like when people say in Sex and the City, New York is the fifth character. You know what I mean? Like, it's considered from the beginning, if not the very beginning. Like, it's all cinematic. It's all, you need the light to tell the story as much as you need a figure or a piece of fruit or a bird or whatever. There needs to be light, otherwise you can't see it. Even if there's pure darkness, if there's a little bit of light, it says something. So yeah.
I like the comparisons to cinema that you often make with your work, because in a movie, every line matters. Every piece of furniture in the production matters. It's there to contribute to a larger story. Would you say in your paintings, everything matters?
Yes. The end.
But you're secretive with it. You like to treat your paintings like a great song lyric where we could interpret it any way.
Yes.
What's the power in that? What's the power in us being the endless render farm where we have to figure out what we're looking at?
Well, this goes to like conversations I have with my writer friend here, who has conversations with other writer friends. And at the end of it all, it's like, do you trust your audience, like the reader? And if you don't, I could spell it all out plain, like, but then you miss the experience of figuring it out for yourself or finding out why you feel that way. You know what I mean?
Like trusting the audience. I like that idea when it comes to art, especially with writing. Yeah, you're assuming, like my audience isn't stupid. They're going to be able to fill in the blanks. They don't need to know exactly what happened to this character off screen.
Right.
But I do have to ask, just out of curiosity, has anyone come up to you and started describing what they thought your painting was about or how it made it feel, and it was completely aligned with what you were trying to do?
Yep.
So
Happens a lot.
What did they crack the code on?
Wait, what?
Like what were the themes that they pulled out of it that you had put into there that surprised you?
I don't want to give anything away.
Okay. I thought I was almost got you there.
You almost did. And Mars is like, no, do it. But the one overall like thing that someone told me they got from I feel like I've been here before show, they asked me, I'm gonna say it was Sydney. She was like, do you feel lonely? Like, this is incredibly lonely. And I'm like, yes, you got it. That's it.
So the Gilda Award that you received is really designed for emerging, up and coming. I really don't want to put like an age on it, but it generally does go to younger artists, emerging artists. Where do you feel you're at in your artistic career right now, and what are the things you're thinking about wanting to do? Because you've done huge murals, you've traveled to do murals, you've done successful solo exhibitions. What are you looking at now as an artist? What are those next things, those challenges that are making you excited about the future?
First, I consider myself emerging. I'm always emerging, right? I'm not established. I'm here. Yeah, I'm curious all the time, and I'm gonna stay curious. And I think the direction I've always been kind of going is toward cinema, but with like the dragnet of good, not bad, where everything that has come into my life that I've experienced or had the privilege of knowing how to do gets put into that, like goes into making cinematic work. Like this video, I created that, I filmed it and I edited it on Premiere. But a thing that people should know about me is if I can get it for free, I probably will. So I used the trial version, which is like what, 6 days? And I finished it with 2 days to spare. So as I was making it, I was learning it. And I made the space to do that. So I just want to keep learning how to do things so I can connect with people. And even if I have the shorthand or the language to explain what I need from someone else in their field where there's an overlap, I want that.
Very, very cool. I mean, I think everyone here would want to see the Bakpak Durden directorial debut.
You just did.
I guess we did. Yeah, we saw the early work.
And that's also my musical debut too. I made that music.
Well, as you described, you listed off all these things that you do. You forgot to list poet because you basically wrote a poem about all the things you do.
I wasn't gonna say nothing.
Just add that to the list, Bakpak.
Listen, there's a timing thing that had to go into it. I had to learn how to do a Rubik's Cube. I had to time moving a candle. I had to time the sound, the fire, the whole thing. It's all time. So no time to say poet, but I said writer.
Real quickly, just again, if anyone does have questions for Bakpak, we're wrapping up this Q&A with Bakpak. We're going to talk to Mars Marshall here in a second. But if you do have any questions for Bakpak, go ahead and put those into chat. You are getting a lot of great comics, like "Are So Epic Bakpak." That was one.
Thank you.
So you're not going to give us any of the hidden meanings, the symbolism that are in your paintings.
There's so much.
But there is a feeling that you want a patron, a viewer to walk away with. What would it be? And elaborate. I know you're thinking of giving me a one-word answer right now.
How'd you know? How I want people to feel.
Yeah.
I want them to feel and to want to come back to feel and want to come back to feel different or explain it better. I think there was a time when I didn't like repetition, or I didn't want to draw something and then paint it. I would just paint it. And the act of repetition gave like me the ability to communicate better, because I'm not the strongest verbal communicator, but I am a stronger visual communicator. So like honing that skill made it so that I could speak a little bit better, and in that communicate and reach out and connect with other people so that hopefully they feel the same way and they do the same.
Very cool. Bakpak Durden, 2021 Gilda Award recipient from Kresge Arts in Detroit as part of their fellowship program. I really want you to do my next tattoo. We will talk about that very, very soon. Thank you so much, Bakpak, for taking the time and acting like you were really nervous, but then being an excellent interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Buttering me up. Man.
Fantastic. So there's a bunch of links that are going in the chat. Thanks to Andrea and Ebony for getting those in there. If you want to stay connected with Bakpak, great follow on the gram, highly recommend it. And very excited to see what Bakpak gets up to next. Only bigger and better things in the future. I know this to be true. So we're going to go from visual arts to literary arts with the 2021 Literary Arts Fellow from Kresge Arts in Detroit, Mars Marshall. Welcome to the Kresge Artist Salon.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So real quickly, how do you and Bakpak know each other? Because you're hanging. This is the first time we've had the artists just be in the same video screen.
This is a great question. Know each other from being in community with each other. I mean, honestly, we know each other just from like being in a similar spaces and just saying like, hey, what's up? And just after so many of those run-ins, actually being really intentional about being like, yo, I want to be your friend. And just making it that simple. I feel like as adults, we don't get the opportunity often to just say like, I want to be friends with you. So I think it was just being really intentional and just saying like, let's stop running into each other and like, let's actually be cool. And as a result, there are a lot of random facts about us that we both share. That's really weird. I won't get into that.
Okay, we'll save that for another salon. Mars, go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do, and then we will get into your video.
Amazing. So I'm Mars. I use they and he pronouns. I am a writer, primarily working through poetry as a genre. I'm also a nascent film photographer, which is really, really fun. And when I'm not creating, I work at Allied Media Projects, which is super cool.
About to move into my neighborhood right over here. So let's go ahead and get to know Mars Marshall, and then we'll ask them some questions after watching this video.
Self-portrait as a boy born into wealth. My silver spoon melted into fronts drip. I never questioned my worth. Pull Versace from the closet and turn my own head. Dressed because I am the occasion. Buy the Swarovski silver bullet Nike Air Max 97 simply because I can. I'm the bullet lodged in my own teeth. Smile. B. I watch the stock market for entertainment. Collect rare bottles of whiskey as trophies. Flash my wrist in the Zoom mirror because who doesn't want to see me shine? I'll call my mother just to say I'm alive and listen to none of what she has to say. I visit my father's grave to take selfies. Here lays the man who gave me much. Order me filet mignon and lobster tail over a creamy bed of polenta. Make my bed and watch me F it up. I lament over breakfast, break into a sun ignored, tell you to polish my nails and call me gorgeous. Why? 'Cause I demand it. I'm the solar eclipse, a rarity you hear of in your textbooks. I splurge on college just because, scroll Twitter to feel relatable. I'm simply devastating. All my girlfriends say so. In the city, I buy a whole block to be remembered. Ain't no boy better. Put diamonds on my birthday cake and make a wish. One thing that's really important to me is being in a space of silence, starting my morning, making a pour over coffee, and really sort of rooting myself in what's happening internally, how I'm feeling, and what do I think that I need in that moment. One thing that I've really tried to do is pour a lot into how I want my space to feel. And I think my space feels very warm. I'm surrounded by things that I really enjoy, things that I really love. So everything from my house plants, just really being around things that are alive feels really important. Being in a space of really great natural daylight. I like the feeling of like, not just that warmth, but the feeling of being very comfortable. Another thing that helps me get into spaces of writing and editing is really reading. Like, I love to read. I really love to engage with many different types of literature, many different artists and writers, and also diving into craft lectures, listening to other people talk about the craft of writing poems. People think about writing as a very kind of like siloed activity, as a very like lonely activity. But I also find that what gets me in the space of writing is to be able to share that writing with my friends, to be able to share it with folks like Brittany Rogers and Ajane Dawkins, and really having people that know my work also edit my work, read my work, having that space to actually talk about writing, to actually talk about the things that we're interested in is also what helps me sort of maintain that space of curiosity to create and to edit my work. So folks that I would be really interested in shouting out because of their influence in my writing, and because of their sort of influence in art today would be Tommy Blount, definitely Nandi Comer, thinking a lot about Jericho Brown, thinking about Lucille Clifton and June Jordan, Dawn Lundy Martin. There are so many writers that I can name. And in terms of visual artists, my sister Crystal Marshall is a visual artist, a visual storyteller that has had a really, really profound impact in how I look at my writing and different elements that I want to bring in. Bakpak Durden is another artist that I look towards in terms of thinking a lot about the intimacy of silence and the sort of play in terms of like the mundane and the interior space. And there are like many different photographers. So Texas Isaiah is a photographer that whose images I really, really love. And there are so many, so many artists that I look towards, but I would start there in naming those few. And I know that for every one of those artists, there are many, many more that I'm looking toward as I create my work. In my manuscript, Flower Boy, a lot of what that body of work is obsessed with is thinking a lot about queer, masculine presenting identities, what it means to have that identity, live in the complexity of that identity, and also understand that those bodies, those folks, those people living with those experiences also experience longing. They also experience desire. And I think a lot of my work has been really, really obsessed with thinking about that from the position of my identity, from the position of also wanting to understand more deeply the complexity of the self within masculinity. Currently, my obsessions are sort of shifting as I start really asking myself some deeper questions around identity, deeper questions around lineage, and really seeking to excavate where I come from, specifically as like a Black person living in America. I'm working on 2 current projects, and I'm really excited about both of those projects. One sort of took shape out of a desire to document and archive all of the childhood spaces that I grew up in Detroit. So what I did was I took my Minolta X700 and I loaded some black and white film into the camera, and I went to every single place that I could remember from my childhood. I thought about the importance of home and how home offers to us some of the very early beginnings of who we will become later on. It's tentatively called Please Call Home. And it's a series of mini essays and photographs that dive into the lived memory of being in those spaces. So that's one project I'm really excited about. Another project that I'm really, it feels really big to talk about. It feels really new to talk about. But the truth is that I've been researching it for a couple of years now. And I spoke a little bit earlier about really taking a look into lineage, taking a look into the depths of where I come from as a child of, or a grandchild of folks that were part of the Great Migration in the South. And Say Grace is tentatively the name of that project. It takes a look at lineage, it takes a look at Black foodways, it takes a look at the Black church, and oftentimes in Black families and Black traditions gathering over a meal, the first thing you have to do before you can even eat it is you have to say grace. And I'm looking at that as a framework for what it means to explore these 3 themes. Those are 2 projects I'm really excited about. I'm really excited to share with you all that my chapbook, Flower Boy, has been picked up by Gold Line Press as an Editor's Choice Award for their recent competition. You all can look forward to that coming out early next year, I believe. But there will be more info released on that in the coming months. You can follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at BLKBOIMARS. That's Black Boy Mars. And you can also find me on my website at BLKBOIMARS.com. That's blackboymars.com. Ode to feeding my homies. When the belly is full and the mouth more than satisfied, I glow in the silence. Relish in how a good meal brings about celebration for all we have together. To hold each other and say, this too is good, and we nourish ourselves with laughter or an earnest conversation over a hot bowl of stew poured neatly atop a bed of rice. We were once too broke to have such lavish meals suggested to cook by the New York Times or Bon Appetit. Took all the change we had in our jars to conjure up spaghetti or dressed up ramen. Sweating over the stove or in summer heat Watching the lit coals smoke the meat done, we cackle often and sometimes cry too. Break bread and allow a sweet hush to fall over the room. How holy it is to grab the light of us and say, friend, I want to ensure you are full. To take all this gratitude I have for you and knead the dough, massage the kale, and mix a vinaigrette sure to please the gods.
Okay, you both made incredible videos. I thought it'd be a tough act to follow for Mars, but Mars, that was fantastic.
I mean,
Well
I have
done.
help.
I'm really curious, real quickly, before we start getting into this chat and I run down this train of thought that I'm currently on, if anyone has any questions for Mars, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we will get those integrated into the conversation. It's really, really fantastic. And we'll wrap up here in a few minutes, asking both Bakpak and Mars a question. So get ready for that. Mars, real quickly, did you ever perform this poetry? Like, were you writing it first and then got into performing it? Were you performing and then started getting into writing more? Tell me about that, because I loved the way that you delivered your writing. That was really fantastic.
Oh, thank you. I started off loosely writing in high school until sadly a teacher said that I couldn't write. So I was like, oh no, I can't write, but I never stopped writing. I got into performing my work when I was in undergrad at Eastern Michigan University, and I was with a crew of people at the time that put on some pretty large shows like The Color of Drums, which is an MLK celebration, and also competed on a national scale for the Collegiate Union's Poetry Slam Invitationals, which is a mouthful. So I started off sort of just loosely writing until I learned that like performance was something that was possible. Hit the open mic circuit and slam circuit with some poets that y'all have like talked to, like Tariq, Brittany Rogers, who was here on this call. So yeah, it's been quite a journey. I think only recently have I become a little bit more comfortable with leaving sort of the notion of like having to memorize my work completely and getting really comfortable with like, you know, being on the page, but learning how to like still make those words come forward.
Really great. You had a teacher who said you couldn't write, like you were distracting the class, or just said talent-wise you couldn't write?
It was talent-wise. She was like, this
Wow.
is a poem you can't write. And I was like, okay. But sometimes, you know, it's those experiences that really, you know, shape how you think about yourself, how you think about the work that you want to be doing. And, you know, maybe I didn't get the assignment right or whatever it was, but it really birthed something beautiful for me to just keep trying it out. Writing is really, it's a discipline, and it takes a lot of work.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a fire. Have you gone, I don't know the level of pettiness that you operate with, but did you reach out to that teacher and tell them that you ended up winning one of the most prestigious awards in the country when it comes to literary arts?
You know, it didn't even cross my mind because some people just need to sit right where they are. So it never crossed my mind. Well, you asking the shady question today, Ryan.
Yeah, I did. It's a new stratosphere of pettiness. Not even bringing it up. You're transcending new levels here.
Entering into the multiverse.
Yes, the multiverse of pettiness. I love that. Pardon me. I do want to ask, we'll talk a little bit about some of these projects that you're working on. Those sound really interesting, but I want to start from that moment when you realized the power of writing for you, because I made a note of something that you were talking about. You know, you talked about getting closer to feelings, questions around identity that you mentioned in your video. And I'm curious, how does writing get you closer to answering some of those questions that you have, or those curiosities that you have?
Yeah, so One thing that feels really important to name is that when I sit down to write, I'm not actively in pursuit of answering a question. And in many ways, it took writing over the course of many years to really be surprised by what I was writing about, right? So it's like, okay, let's sit down, let's write a poem, or I'm writing in community with other people. And I'm like, why is it these themes that keep popping up in my writing, right? And having to get really, really curious about that, but also allowing myself to be in a space where I guess I would say a reveal almost, right? To be really surprised by what's popping up, what's happening, and then learning how to shape that in a way that feels really useful. I think first to myself, but making a conscious decision of like, what is actually important to share with the world and what's actually important to just hold really close.
That is again a theme, talking to Bakpak, that idea of leaving some room for the imagination of your reader, which it's really fantastic to have both of you, Bakpak building visual worlds, you building, worlds inside of the mind of the people that are reading. I mean, what are the sensations, the feelings, the ideas that you're trying to get across in your work?
Yeah, I think it depends on the poem and it depends on the project, right? So I think with Flower Boy plays a lot with a specific taboo within the Black queer community, right? That entire manuscript is thinking a lot about, what actually do we need to just confront and say, and also how do we like disrupt this specific taboo that's happening, right, in the world. And I guess I don't know if I want to let y'all into this or not. I mean, I don't know. I think when we think a little bit about, or when I've been thinking a little bit about the work, the feeling of like connection, right? And the feeling of like, what does it mean for you to find your folk, right? And with writing, I also feel like it's the gift of writing is that when it extends outside of yourself, it's left to the reader, right? So I'm always curious to know what the reader actually tells me that they feel. And I'm often surprised like by what I receive and how people receive my work.
Yeah, what have been some of the ways that your work has impacted people? What have you heard?
I think I think the thing that comes up most immediately for me is I'll draw on a project that I did with Wayne State University's Department of Music. And I sat down with students one-on-one, and we just had a conversation. They told me about their lives. They told me about, things that they were really thinking about. And one of the students that I got paired with for that project was like, yo, you changed my life. Like hearing your poems, like allowed me to live within the fullness of my identity and be unapologetic about that. And that's something that I don't take lightly. And it's something that really, really humbled me, is that just by writing the work, just by sharing that work, someone else could then say, I'm cool with being who I know I need to be. So that's one example that I'll touch on.
That's incredible to hear that story of connecting with someone in that way. I'm sure that's very rewarding as a writer to hear that and have that experience. I immediately think though, the source of that person to get that from your writing is because you had to be vulnerable in the first place and talk about queer identity in a Black community, whatever it is that you're tackling in that particular poem. So talk to me about that vulnerability, because I can't imagine that's just an easy thing to just wake up and immediately be able to put on the page. I'm sure there's a process to really get that voice inside of you out.
Yeah, you're right. It is a process, and I feel that in my writing, I'm always negotiating vulnerability, right? If there's a piece that feels a little too vulnerable for me, or poems that I've been sitting on for years that, because of how vulnerable they are, it then signals to me like, am I ready to share that work? And what does it mean to share that work? And this is where like having a close community of writers, a close community of artists comes into play, because a lot of those vulnerable pieces are first shared with my friends, right? Are first shared with people that I write with, or people that I create work with. And it's never easy to, I think, realize that this point of vulnerability is happening, right? But I'm always asking myself, like, what is the opportunity to soften here? And what is the gift of tenderness in this poem? And I think that, yeah, there are some pieces that you just can't share with everybody. And the ones that you do so being held with community members that love you, and that, you know, help guide you through what that may look like and the importance of such.
Well said. I feel like I'm becoming a better writer just talking to you, so thank you. Appreciate that very, very much. Incredible conversation. Now we're gonna combo Bakpak Mars Power Hour. It's not actually gonna be an hour, don't be afraid. But I do just want to say one more time in the chat. Oh, we do have a question from Ebony. I do want to get this in here. The animation in the beginning of your video, which was super dope. What was the inspiration for the color palette and the design? That's a question from
my sister, Crystal Marshall, literally did that.
Oh, that was your sister.
My sister did that. And I could run to the back room and grab her, but she wouldn't like that. But that's a question for my sister. My sister is one of my best friends and early collaborators. She's also a hand lettering artist and an animator, as you just saw. And she does so many different things. So yeah, I should ask Crystal that, because that's a great question.
So you trusted. You were just like, here's the poem. You whatever comes in your mind, that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, well, we collaborated on the whole video. I just created an outline and said, this is how we should move through this with some clarity. And she came over and shot the thing and then said, I'm also going to animate a poem. And I said, fine. So it was about what she wanted to do. And it was really cool. I mean, we've been collaborating since we were kids. So to have something like this happen feels really special.
That's really dope. Shout out to Crystal. Nice work. So Kresge, artist, Salon, and a big part of Kresge Arts in Detroit is the Literary Arts Fellowship, the Gilda Award that both of you have received. So we got to talk about what that has meant for you. And Mars, since you're currently on the stage, talk a little bit about what it felt like to receive that honor. And we'll start there.
Yeah. One, I couldn't believe that I received this honor, right? It took a long time for it to sink in. And what it's meant for me, I guess, to put it really succinctly, is that it's shown me that that being an artist is possible, being a writer is possible, right? To have someone affirm your work in this way really helps you see like a new path that I didn't necessarily see before. And it's less about professionalizing my experience as a writer and more about the opportunity to deepen in my craft, deepen in my practice, and to have the spaciousness to be able to do such.
Was there anything about the financial side of it that has allowed you to do anything? And I always say people, be specific about it. That's what they talk about in the grant. And I think it's an important part of this grant is getting rid of, like, I guess it's a taboo of talking about the fact that artists need money to live and that they should be given support. So I'm curious, when it actually comes down to like the logistics, like what did that financially mean for you? And what has it allowed you to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think first, before getting into that question, there's a lot to be said around the stewardship that we have to do individually around money. There's a lot of trauma around money, especially when you're talking about like Black folks who grew up in the city of Detroit and what money means. And also, yeah, how do you have that conversation with yourself, right? So, that aside, the first thing that I had to do was get a tax person. I said, please don't let me get into tax debt with this money. And also, you know, I have been working with a financial planner to really get clear, like, what does it mean to have this experience for the first time receiving money as an artist? On a practical sense, I mean, it allowed me to refine my space so that I can be able to write in my space more comfortably. I think moving into a state of living where you're working at home, you're creating at home, you go to therapy at home. If you go to therapy, you know, like there's so much emotional hoarding in one space that it became really clear that one thing that I really needed to do was to clear and make space to be able to continue to create in my home. So, you know, a lot of funds went there, right? To make sure that I could keep doing the work that I wanted to do, while also opening up the opportunity for me to explore different practices to pair with my art. So I mentioned picking up film photography. So being able to play around with that medium a little bit more. And it also allowed me to dive into some creative partnerships with people. And yeah, I'll stop there.
Very cool. Congrats again on that honor. Not just a big deal for Metro Detroit, really one of the most prestigious fellowships you could win in the country. Bakpak, come on back to me, Bakpak. Let's talk a little bit about the Gilda Award. What was going on when you found out about that, and what did that mean for you?
Well, when I first read the email, I'm like, well, guess I didn't get it. Because I misunderstood it. So I just like left it, marked it unread.
Oh, wow.
I'll come back to it. I'll come back. And then I read it again. I was like, wait a minute. I got something, you know, that's cool. I'm excited. I think a lot of the time people place receiving an award with validity as opposed to an affirmation or an acknowledgement. And I know I'm valid, so I'm going to stand in that and tip my hat to the affirmation and the acknowledgement and keep it moving. And I'll show up for every single thing I could show up for, because it's only going to put me in a place where I can receive more acknowledgement and more affirmation for the thing that I need to do personally, and that's creative.
Great answer. And financially, what does that mean for you? Did that allow you to buy supplies, or what did that mean for you?
Well, the conversation that Mars stated we need to have is the conversation we need to have.
Sure.
There is a large divide. There's a large divide between an emerging artist and an established artist when it comes to this award. And I also feel like that should be interrogated. That aside, I quit my job before receiving the news that I got the award, like a month before. So I was like, all right with not having a job. And then receiving the award and then some money was tight. I'm like, cool, I can like take a deep breath. You know, I'll buy more shiny things. That's what I love, shiny things. But I think at one point, Mars and I were at Third Wave, and I just bought a synthesizer because I could. And that lent itself to more creating things. Like, so it's not appreciated and it's not being used in an advantageous way. I just feel like it needs to be put into context with how it's perceived between the Kresge and the Gilda, and then how it's in context with the cost of living in Detroit versus the cost of living around the country. In art awards. And that's that.
Well said. Bakpak Durden 2021 Gilda awardee from the Kresge Arts in Detroit Fellowship. Congrats, Bakpak. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Mars Marshall, thank you so much. 2021 Literary Arts Fellow from Kresge Arts in Detroit. Absolutely incredible. And you got to come on my show.
Invite me, I'm down.
All right, I'm going to slide into those DMs here in a
All
little bit.
right.
Thank you to everyone that came out to support the Kresge Artist Salon here. Really fantastic conversation. The videos were incredible. I've got all the art feels after that conversation. I hope you have all the art feels as well. Hope you enjoyed your time and leave today feeling more connected to these talented artists, and also thinking about some of the topics that they brought up. And when you go to explore their work and stay in touch with them, which you can check out all those links in the chat, there's so much more context that we now have about who they are and what they're putting into their work. And I really do appreciate them taking the time to walk us through that and give us the privilege of that context around their work. Again, contact information in the chat. If you'd like to rewatch or share this program, which we hope you do, you can go to Kresge Arts in Detroit Presents.art. That is Kresge Arts in Detroit Presents.art. It will be posted there in the next few days. You can see the other salons that we have done so far that have been really incredible. I'm very grateful to be here. And on Wednesday, April 6th at noon, we will be doing another one. And Orlando P. Bailey, an Emmy Award-winning journalist with Bridge Detroit, will be moderating that. Bridge Detroit is fantastic. Orlando is fantastic. So I hope you can go and check that out Wednesday, April 6th at noon. You can learn more and register for that salon using the link in the chat. On behalf of Kresge Arts in Detroit and WDET, where you can listen to my show, Culture Shift, weekdays 12 to 2. I want to thank everybody for coming out and supporting this salon, supporting these artists. And until next time, I hope you have a great weekend. We will see you at the next salon. Bye.
E.
Hey.